Welcome everyone to Rise, Rinse, Repeat. I feel weird welcoming people when I'm looking at you.
Well, then look over there.
No,
Welcome.
because, no. If I look at the camera, then I'm just going to talk different. And my voice is going to go up and down, up and down. I just need to focus on you and just stay consistent. Okay. Welcome everyone to Rise, Rinse, Repeat, the podcast about life, love, and family.
I'm Lisa. This is my husband, Trent. Thank you for joining us this evening or this morning or whenever you decided to listen to this.
There's no scheduled time for you guys. You can listen to whenever.
Yeah. It just drops on Saturdays. So.
At 7.
In the morning. I don't know why, but that's what it does.
That was the time it picked for us. We said Saturday and it just automatically said it was coming out at 7 and we never changed it.
Oh, okay. Well, cool. I guess that's fine. My hands are dry. Welcome to the show. So today's show is a continuation from the last part. If you did not hear part 1, Life Experiment, I encourage you to stop this podcast, go listen to that one, and then continue to listen to this one. Part 2, Growing Pains. Do you want to give us a little tagline before we jump into our intro?
Mistakes aren't bad if you learn from them. I mean, that's where I was going with this, that life is you're gonna make mistakes, life is gonna hit you over the head. But that's part of life, and you just have to learn from them and move on and try not to repeat it or try to head yourself against reality. Whatever hits you, just realize that it's an opportunity to grow.
We'll dive right in then to everything you just said. Look how amazing it was. My brain just stopped working for a second.
It is 9 o'clock at night, so
I am tired.
It's so late.
Today has been a long day for me, okay? It's been very long. But let's talk about growing pains. That's part of it. When you choose to become a parent and when you have to eventually become an adult, life is filled with all of these things, all of this stuff, and so you've got to
adapt, grow,
deal with it.
Yeah. I was having some feedback too. It sounded like Apple and whining, but I don't think it is.
Okay.
I feel like it's me breathing into the mic funny.
That's really funny.
Okay, how about this? Am I close enough to the mic?
Yeah, I can always turn you up, so you don't have to.
I feel like we're maxed out right now.
You're not maxed out.
Okay. Yeah, this is still a process that we are learning how to podcast.
Yeah, we are. I sometimes hit peak. I hit your peak. Go ahead and talk for me.
Okay. I love you.
Yeah, you're okay.
Okay. Okay, so growing pains.
Yeah.
The first thing I want to say is you can't escape them. Just like growing up, just like if when you actually have growing pains when you're growing taller, when your bones are growing, it's going to happen. You can't avoid it. So there's no reason to. I mean, there is a reason to try. We don't want pain. But just realize they are, whatever it is, it's going to happen. I was trying to think of an example, and I don't know if I actually came up with one. There's one where my dad was working up on a mountain, and me and my little brother Trace were with him, and we were getting bored because he was closing down this cabin for the winter, and we were getting bored, and there was this rock slide nearby, and so we ran down it and slid down it. We had a great time, and my dad was like, "We'll meet you by the geodome," which is a kind of house that has a domed roof. And so we found it, but there was another road below us that you could just barely see, And for some reason, I got it in my head, and I was convinced that that was the road we needed to be on. So I was freaking out that we were going to get left up there and we were going to die. We were going to starve to death. I don't know, I was probably 12, 13. Old enough to know that it was kind of ridiculous. But, you know, you're in emotions and you're freaking out. I'm sure I scared Trace.
You probably did.
But, no, there he was. He drove on the same road we were on. He picked us up. But it was one of those things where he told me, if you ever get lost in the mountains, just go downhill.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll eventually find water, you'll find a house, you'll find a road, you'll find something. Not at the top of the mountain, you don't go up, you always go downhill. And so after that, I was always more confident in the woods. And it's just one of those things where I had to go through that experience. It wasn't fun. I was terrified for 5 minutes. It probably wasn't even that long. I felt like we were there for hours, and Trace keeping on that road down there. If you see Dad, we'll just have to run. So it's one of those things that is growing pains. There's another time. It was same mountain, Quartz Creek Properties. I was 14. Again, me and Trace, we were driving around, moving lumber from one job site to another in my dad's blue Toyota. It's a stick shift. And we were going down the mountain, so we loaded up lumber, we were going down the mountain, and we hit a steep part and I had to slow down, and apparently we didn't strap the lumber very well, and the lumber slid off the front of the truck, hit the ground, and then slammed through my dad's windshield and broke it. And I was like, man, my dad he's gonna be so mad. I just ruined his windshield. It was a stupid mistake. I should have known how to strap something down. Very basic stuff. So I get back, so I lost some lumber. Some of the lumber fell off the road. Some of it was all off the road. We picked up the stuff we could. And so I drove like 200 yards down. We parked, and I was like shaking and freaking out. And this guy drives by, and it's Trace's, I think it's Trace's favorite quote. And the guy drives by and he rolls down his window. He's like, "Did you lose some lumber?" And I don't know, I was 14. It's like, "You idiot, yes, we did." I didn't tell him that, but yeah, like, yeah, I lost some lumber. And so I can't remember if we went and found my dad, or my dad found us. I'm pretty sure he went and found him, and I told him what happened, and he laughed. He thought it was funny. I didn't get in trouble. Like, I didn't try to break the windshield.
Right.
But that's another thing I had to go through to learn that this is how you strap lumber down. And I've never lost lumber since.
That's good. Well, those are all like really good examples of growing pains, the things in life that we have to go through in order to figure. What tea did you have?
Turmeric, ginger.
You're crazy.
It's not bad. I made it for Elisa. Oh, here's no growing pains. Elisa was sick. I made this tea for her. I think I put 2 tablespoons of this tea in it, and it was undrinkable.
Oh
and
my
so
Lord, I
put
remember
way less than this
hugging
one.
my nose and chugging because it's good for you when you're sick, and it totally helped. But I thought I was also gonna die at the same time. No, so I moved. Okay. Anyway, sorry. Those are really good examples of growing pains and like the things that we have to go through, like in our life, and sometimes that. I feel like growing pains they're embarrassing because they're things that you expect yourself to know, but there's no way, like in your stories, there's no way you would have known that.
Yeah.
Like not every 14-year-old knows how to strap down lumber. They don't. That's just because it's just some of them just don't know that, and that's fine. Like I didn't know how to do that. I knew what straps were, but I didn't know. Like I always was I was a daddy's girl, so I was the one that would help my dad with those projects or do things. And my mom was always like tomboyish as well. Like, so, we're feminine and we're proud to be. But at the same time too, we're also not afraid of like hard work and those kinds of things. But there's just things, and that's your job, like as a parent, is to teach your kids. And some of the lessons that you want them to learn, sometimes they have to learn it on their own, and you've got to let them go through that process. Of making those mistakes, dusting themselves back off, and to continue going forward on all of that.
Yeah, being a parent is that balance of protecting your kids because you don't want them to get hurt, but knowing that they are going to get hurt, and that's the best way for them to learn. So it's creating that reality around them. Like when Evelyn right now, we do everything we can. Mm-hmm. We don't give her a little something to plug in an outlet and say, "Oh, here, learn this outlet will electrocute you." Like, that's not what we do. Yeah, I just look weird too. I just bought another headphone jack, so hopefully next time we do this.
Yeah, this
our
thing is
audio will
like
be good.
so shaky. Like in our ears, it is good, but like it's shaky in the ear, and it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It drives me insane.
But yeah, that's one of those things like right now, Adeline, no, we do everything we can to protect her. So eventually we'll slowly start backing that stuff off.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, we'll never be like, oh yeah, you can touch the fireplace and you'll learn. Like, that's not ideal. You can be there. No,
Yeah, exactly. No, it's not.
if you do that, you're kind of being neglectful. Like, yeah, maybe there's a chance that she could, but we're going to do everything we can to stop her from it. And so it's finding those boundaries of, oh no, when the fire's hot, we get Adeline close to it, we hold her, like, say, hot. And then we try to teach her that way.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I'd say.
Oh, okay, I was making sure. No, I mean, yeah, there's things like that they've got to make decisions on, and yeah, there's a balance. Like, I don't like how, you have the labels of either helicopter parents or parents that just, they have no idea where their kid is, ever, and you've got to find a balance between those. And I don't really like those terms either, because just because a parent might be way more intense, might be this helicopter parent or the complete opposite, I don't think that makes them necessarily bad parents. Are there things that their kids might struggle with a little bit more than others? Maybe, on either side of the spectrum. But even if you're trying to balance, and maybe you found the balance between both of those, it doesn't mean that your kids aren't going to make mistakes too and have to learn. Like, that's just a part of life. These growing pains are a part of our life. I was going to come more from an emotional and spiritual standpoint, probably also just being female on that. There are physical things that you have to go through and just learn, oh, maybe I shouldn't do that because this is what happened last time or whatever. But it is coming from an emotional standpoint, like, when you have your first crush, it's like so exciting and it's everything, and you go through all these emotions and and then, they don't like you back, or you get to date for a little bit, but then it falls through and it doesn't work, and like the emotion there that you went through, it's a growing pain, because you learn too that boys at 16 years old have no idea what they're doing. And I know you're kidding, but neither do girls. We might be more mature in different ways, but that doesn't mean that we're more mature in the love aspect and knowing. Some people are lucky. My parents they met their senior year, they're high school sweethearts. I have cousins that were that way too. I mean, that's not how like we were or anything like that, but I mean, when we knew, we knew. And some people are lucky to know, oh yeah, this is my person and I found them in high school, but that doesn't mean they're going to get married right away and do all of that stuff. They're still in high school. There's so many things that a high schooler still goes through emotionally and mentally, physically, all of that stuff. And so, yeah, emotionally speaking, like you have all of that stuff that you're still trying to figure out, like, who you are. And again, like, even becoming parents, now you're figuring out a whole new journey of who you are emotionally and how you balance that all and how that ends up working. If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does.
Yeah.
You're never going to stop growing. And that was, I think that was a lot of what we were talking about last week with the life experiment, is you should never stop growing. You should never become so complacent that you can't try new things, that you're stuck in something that's rote, it's routine, it's easy, it's comfortable. Because when we get comfortable, that's when we neglect God a lot of times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Or it becomes dogmatic, because it's not a relation. You don't need God. It's comfortable. You have everything you need. You don't need God. You can still read your Bible. You can still do all that stuff, but it's less of you're actually relying on Him, and it's more of something you wear.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean, I get what you're saying. So, like, the routine of going to church on Sundays, volunteering, reading your Bible every morning, doing all that is fantastic. That is great. But where you have to be careful is it becoming dogmatic? Like, are you doing it because you're like, oh, I have to do this. I have to do this, or so-and-so will judge me, or my kids or my family structure is not going to look like it should. Like, whatever it is, if it's coming from a place of self-seeking or self-righteousness, you are clearly doing it wrong. Because that's not what it's supposed to be about. Like, it's supposed to be self-sacrificing, and that's where I was going to jump into for the spiritual sense of everything. I've been reading in Matthew and studying Matthew, and it's been incredible. It's been awesome. One of the stories that I remember reading is, where was it? It was in Matthew 15. It starts in 21, when Jesus was like healing people. This woman comes and she's like begging, big, dramatic, all this stuff, right? And she's begging to Jesus for him to like heal her daughter. Her daughter has some like evil spirit or something like that. And she's like, heal my daughter. And he looks at her and he ignores her. He's just, and you know, everything that you read about him, he doesn't do that. That's not what it's about. Like, he's like, yes, I will help you, you know, but it's because she came from a self-seeking place. She didn't truly believe that Jesus could really do this. She just wanted her way. And it goes into, that is in our lives. How many times are we trying to get our way? Our way has to be it. It's the only way. Well, when we're so focused on having to control every single thing in our life, even family members, people that we love, or like, you know, our schedule, our day-to-day down to our very minutes, whatever it may be, when that happens, there's no room for God to move. There's no room for new people, new relationships to bud in your life. And we talked a little bit about that last week. Like, when you are unchanging and unmovable, nothing can happen in your life. Nothing can change if you're not willing. And I'm not saying changing who you are. It's very important that you don't, yes, sacrifice who God has made you to be, but you cannot confuse that with your idea of who God has made you to be, or who you think you are.
Or who you think other people want you to be.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, I know we've been open. I think this is the most we've ever talked about, like, our faith in our podcast, but I wanted to come from the growing pains of when you choose to dive into nourishing your spiritual side of your life. You've got to remember that God doesn't care about your image. He doesn't care about what your family looks like, or, you know, where you came from, where you're at, whatever. He's concerned about the relationship he has with you. He wants your heart. He wants your trueness invested in it. And I've just realized that it's like everybody, again, in the growing pains, makes mistakes. We all have sin. We've all messed up. We all have a past. We all are just going day to day to do the best that we can. And in order to do the best that we can, we have to try. And when we try, that's when we make mistakes. And we've got to learn from those mistakes. Because when we don't, we're going to start seeing different things happen. Either we're going to be stuck in this rut, like you said. We're going to be complacent. We're not going to care. We're going to lose our fear of missing out on things. We're going to lose people in our lives. Or, you know, maybe we're growing and moving forward, and we are changing and doing what we should be doing, you know, trying to keep being good people, or, you know, growing and adapting and changing, staying true to who we are, but the best trueness of ourselves that God calls us to be. And just, we might lose people along the way in that sense as well. So, I mean, I know it all goes both ways. And again, this life that we're in is a hard thing to balance.
Yeah. Yeah. When we're honest with ourselves and with God, and that relationship comes first, that's when he blesses us and everything else falls into balance. It doesn't mean our life's going to be perfect. We're still going to have those growing pains because we live in a fallen world.
Mm.
But that is, marker down, that is the closest that we will ever get to perfection in this world.
Yeah.
And it's still going to be messed up. It's still going to be hard. It's still going to be screwed up.
Mm-hmm.
But that is the promise that God gives you. You do everything I tell you to, and this life will be as good as it can be for you. And it's and it was meant to be perfect, but it's not anymore. And so that's why we have the hope of something after this that makes all of this worth it.
Yeah. No, and it does. And so the growing pains, like, it does. It goes with everything in our life. I guess I'll wrap up on my spiritual side unless you have things, but I'll just wrap up with this because I absolutely love it. So I'm just going to read it so I don't mess up anything. These people make a big show of saying the right thing, but their heart isn't in it. They act like they're worshiping me, but they don't mean it. They just use me as a cover for teaching whatever suits their fancy. When I read this, I was like, oh my gosh, yes, this is growing pains. This is what we're getting ready to work on. And I circled it and highlighted it because that's totally what it is. And it's under the section of what pollutes our life. So we can have mistakes in our lives that are causing pollution because we're choosing not to learn from it. We're choosing to misuse, yes, either God's word or people in our lives or just our own self in our own family or whatever. And we've just got to, we've got to stop back. We got to step back and just look at the big picture of it all. And like you're saying, are we stopping and just learning from our mistakes? Or are we just continuously doing whatever it is that we want to do?
Yeah. I heard the definition of insanity once from somewhere, but it was doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different outcome. These growing pains are there for a reason. They're because God loves us. Because he's trying to get us to learn. And so that's what you have to learn from them. Because they're not just there to make your life miserable. Right. Like, they make your life miserable, but that's not the point of them. God's not, well, you guys rebelled, so I'm going to punish you while I can until you get to heaven. No, every single thing that happens is for our good, for the good of those who love him. That's in the Bible somewhere. I'm very mad. No, where that stuff is from.
That's why it's okay.
But that's what it's there for, and that's how you have to look at it. Okay, this happened. Why did it happen? Thank you, God. Hopefully I can learn from it.
Right. Yeah. Trust me, some of us take a while to learn things. Some of us have to keep falling on our face, or some of us it takes from our freshman year in high school till we're about going to be turning 26 years old to have this huge revelation in our lives, to realize the first relationship you ever had that was supposed to be a real relationship that was connected in emotion and spirituality and mental, talking and actually having a relationship there, dive bombed, and then it misconstrued all of these other relationships, and that held you back from sitting here and seeing, oh, wait a minute, I have the perfect package right here, and this is what happened, and here's this huge revelation of, if I would have noticed this years before, would I have met this person earlier on or not? You don't know. You can't go back and change it. But you've had that revelation. You finally realized, I've been doing all of this wrong because I've been the one trying to control everything. I've been the one that's trying to fix it, and I can't fix it on my own completely. And I've also got to realize that there is a problem, and in order to move on and accept it and have that.
Yeah. I feel a lot of first steps for recovery and that kind of stuff is recognizing you have a problem. And it's hard.
Yeah.
Because we don't want it to admit it to ourselves. And that's what I was saying last week, that it's really easy to lie to ourselves.
Yeah.
And that's what I meant. That it's easy to say, oh, it's not a problem. I'm great. That one area is not a problem in my life. Oh, it's somebody else's problem. Somebody else is the issue.
Yeah. It's easier to place blame on somebody else because it's harder to take responsibility for yourself. Or if it is you, I don't know why. Maybe you do, but I don't know why it's harder sometimes to accept the responsibility. It's something you have to learn to say, no, I did this, own to it, I messed up, I'm going to ask for forgiveness or whatever, or move on.
It makes you vulnerable, saying you messed up or you did something wrong.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And that's really hard with doing it to other people because you have this ego, the self-image that you're trying to maintain. And yeah, every time you make a mistake and you have to admit it, it tears that down a little bit. It makes you feel vulnerable and scared, and it messes up. It literally, it'll mess up your mind. Like your brain, if you get a little bit more anxious or something, your brain has to compensate for that, and it takes away from certain parts of your. I know. I mean, you kind of get what I'm saying.
Yes, I know what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I get what you're saying. When you're focused on, when you do have to be vulnerable, there's a million other things that are going on, and it does create an anxiousness, especially if you're not familiar with being vulnerable. Being vulnerable actually gives you a sense of freedom. But a lot of people, it takes a minute, especially the first time you're ever vulnerable. It is a scary rush of anxiousness and worry and anxiety, and you have no idea, because you are being vulnerable, because you're letting everything down in this one person or whatever, like into your world or into your heart or whatever it is, into who you are, and it's scary.
Yeah.
But the more that you do it, not saying that you should do it all the time, and so like all these people know so many deep prophetic things about you. No, like you're supposed to guard your heart, you're supposed to protect your heart, because there are people out there that are seeking to tear that down and destroy that innocence and that vulnerability. So you do have to be cautious. But when you choose to do it with the right people that you know, that you trust, that you can lean on and are there for you, that vulnerability is a sense of freedom. In a way.
Yeah, I think it's really easy to do that with a spouse. Like that's, I think, a big part of marriage is you need to be vulnerable. You need to be able to admit you make mistakes. And it's when you have that connection with another person and you get married, it naturally built itself. But with like other people, if you make a mistake and you have to apologize, whether it's a boss or something, you're like, I had a status. What is it now? Because I made a mistake. Do they think less of me? And that takes a lot out of you. Your brain will revert energy to survival mode. And you'll just take a lot out of you.
Yeah. No, it will. Yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah.
I'm trying to think back to this book, How Emotions Are Made, and that's where I'm getting a lot of this, but I haven't listened to it in a while.
Oh yeah, I remember.
It was a really good book. Definitely recommend it to anybody. I should probably find it. Or you guys.
Oh yeah, we can put in
the
a link for people to.
Yeah, How Emotions Are Made. Really, really good.
Not sponsored. This is not a sponsorship or anything like that. This is just strictly, it's a great book, and we recommend it.
Disclaimer.
I don't need to be flagged. Anyway, no, I get what you're saying. And even if you don't have a spouse or a significant other that you're serious and you foresee yourselves ending in marriage, you can have friends even in your life that, or a close relative.
Parents, siblings, yeah.
Yeah, that you can rely on and have that vulnerability with as well. And let me just say, when you're honest and vulnerable and you seek out that help and you share that, it takes away the isolating lie that the enemy likes to tell, or you like to tell yourself. I believe it's the enemy that likes to tell you this, that you're the only one that goes through this. You're the only one struggling with this. You're the only one. You're the only one. That's the key to that sentence. But you're not. As soon as you share it, that lie becomes irrelevant, because you're going to get someone in that close circle of yours that sits there and says, oh yeah, I'm going through that too, or oh, I did go through that. Here's some verses, here's some prayer, here's some of this or that, or whatever. I'm here for you. What do you need? A phone call? Well, because you want to go out to eat, you want to talk, whatever, grab a coffee. You've got resources, you've got people. And that, I think, is what is really important. Community in the growing pain sense. You need that, even if it's just one person, either your spouse or besides your spouse. Like, I have to say, I have a good, close network of friends that I feel like I can be there for, and they're there for me, besides my wonderful husband here. And you know a lot more of the nitty-gritty, because we're in it, and, you know, my friends also have lives. And my sister also has a life and a baby and a husband, and so they don't always get all of that. But when there is time and things like that that I have to jump into or seek maybe a women's side so they can talk to me woman on woman, to sit here and say, yeah, you're being extra, yes, we let you be emotional, now you're done being emotional, so now we need to have a talk, or whatever, because women, that's what we do. It's who we are, and it's great, there's beauty in it, but there's also a lot of chaos in it too.
Yeah, you need both. I'm not saying just a spouse.
Oh, no,
I'm sorry if it came across
no,
that
no,
way.
no, it didn't.
Well, thank you for the clarification, because it is. We're born into a family, and they should be there for you. Like, ideally, they're the ones who are going to shape you the most and get you ready for your spouse. Or not, and just they're the closest ones to you, or God. Because you can always turn to God, but He's always there, but sometimes we need actual people.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can't substitute God, you can't substitute actual people. You need both.
Mm-hmm.
Because the actual people can call you out. Like, oh, yeah, you say you're turning to God, but you're not.
Right.
Because if you actually turn to God, then that's great. That's going to be your best resource. But a lot of times, you can read your Bible in the morning, and that's it, and it doesn't affect you, and you
Mm-hmm.
keep living your life the way you do, and you need those people to be in your life that you've let in enough to see, like, oh, yeah, you're not living out what you're saying.
Yeah.
Which is really hard.
It is. I had this amazing conversation with someone this week, and, you know, that was one thing that they were saying, was they feel burnt out, they feel drained because they're drawing from their own well instead of Jesus' well. Jesus' well is never ending. It's you always have somewhere to draw from, but ours, it has a stopping point. It has an end point, because we are not perfect. We aren't Jesus. We don't have the resources that He has. And so when we're faced with anxiety or worry or whatever it is, we need to remember, yes, I agree, we need both. But when you're feeling out of balance, that's when then you need to look at the big picture and say, where's God? Is He at the center, or did I put Him at the bottom of the pyramid? Yes, He's our foundation, but in the sense of He has to be at the center, so He's in control of everything. And so your foundation is firm. You have your walls, you have your roll, you have everything in balance. And so when that order gets undone and misplaced,
There's going to be more growing pains.
There's going to be more growing pains, because you're drawing from yourself, and we have limits where God is limitless. He is it all.
Yeah, we're finite. He's infinite.
Yes.
Yeah, like you said, our wells will run dry. Just relying on yourself each and every day. Okay, I'm strong enough. I need to wake up at this time. I need to do this. I need to do that.
Yeah.
Will drain you.
Yeah, well.
Eventually, and you will break, and you'll do something stupid, and that's God calling you back, saying, like, you can't wake up in the morning like that. You got to be like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
it's all God. I'm going to give myself grace today. I'm going to learn something today. I'm going to grow today.
Yeah.
Hopefully with as few growing pains as possible.
Yeah, but those growing pains, again, are there to shape us and mold us to keep being the best versions of ourselves that we can be, if we let them, if we learn from the mistakes to keep going. And that's what's important, is to know all of that. I know in this one we went a little bit more spiritual than in our last one, but I think that's kind of what this 3-part series is. It's going to encompass the physicality side, the spiritual side, and the emotional side
Because you can't
of what
separate
this life is. Exactly.
People try to all the time, but then they just get the religion or the spirituality in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
So we
Or
cannot
it becomes
separate.
religion
Yeah.
instead of a relationship, and that becomes, again, the dogmatic thing you were talking about earlier.
Yeah. So we can't separate all three. People think they do, but they don't. It's another way we lie to ourselves. Everybody has a religion.
Mm-hmm.
So ours is just Christ and God.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I don't think we've ever, I mean, even starting this podcast, we weren't shy about that. Like, we get it, some people that's not their thing, or that's not. Others, this will touch and impact, and that's great. We just want to, like you said, the podcast is about life, love, and family, where we have our faith. It's not always going to be faith-based, but it's going to tie in and it's going to come in because it's a part of our lives.
Yeah, a very important part.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, I think that's all I have to say.
Okay,
All my
great.
mental points.
Yeah, you're going great. I'm glad. I'm so glad. Okay. Well then, I'll wrap up by saying this. Please like, comment, give us a 5-star rating if you so wish, or if you're watching here on YouTube, like, comment, subscribe, go over and follow us on our Instagram page, Rise, Rinse, Repeat Podcast. Please check out in the description below. We're going to link the book we were talking about. We're going to link some of the articles that Trent and I have written on Substack. We're going to link our links to previous podcasts, whatever we need to do there. And hopefully we're going to be having some guests on here soon. Is there anything else you want to say?
No, I think that's it. I think you did good.
Okay, well, wait, hold on. You're supposed to say something. I'm just kidding. No, you don't have to say anything. I was gonna say this one thing. I think May 14th. Yeah, May 14th. I believe we're not gonna have.
I thought it was the 7th. They're coming to 5 to 11.
Yeah, but we should have time to record before they get here for this one, right? Because we're previously recorded.
Okay, so yes, 14.
We could have had this worked out if he would have just listened. No, I'm just kidding. I love you. I'm just kidding. I believe it's the 14th. I might have to correct myself next time.
No, it's the 14th.
May 14th, and then we'll have another date in June that we won't have one. But yeah, May 14th we won't, but we're hoping to have a couple of guests on here. We're excited about that. Yeah. I hope you guys have a wonderful time listening to this podcast and all of our other ones. Please check them out.